Hey everybody, it's Pete Delatorre, the CEO of Camacol Talk, and welcome to Camacol Talk. This program is brought to you by the City of Doral, Baptist Health South Florida, City Place Doral, and Equitable Advisors. This show is a weekly video podcast where we focus on the members and the business community in Doral and throughout South Florida, the leaders of Camacol, and all the movers and shakers. Speaking about a mover and shaker, my special guest today is one of the most known movers and shakers in Miami, and I'm talking about Matt Haggman, the Executive Vice President of Opportunity Miami and the Beacon Council. And we're going to talk about the success that we have been having in this city with so much going on, in spite of the difficulties of COVID and even the Great Recession from a few years ago. So let's tune in and watch that conversation. All right, everybody, with me, the one and only Matt Haggman. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, Pete, great to see you. It's so awesome to be with you. It's been a while, so I'm so happy that we can catch up and talk about all that's happening.
It's been a long time. I remember the day when we were operating at 8:80 a.m. The Biz over at that station on Flagler and 29th Avenue or 28th Avenue, and it felt like we were going back into the 50s. It was an old place. By the way, that building doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, really?
They finally leveled it about a year or two ago, and it was sold 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So something else is going to go there. But there's a lot of history there, and you and I did a lot of stuff for a couple of years, and when you were at the Knight Foundation and of course over at the Beacon Council. There's so much to talk about here. What I'd like to do for the benefit of the viewers and listeners that may or may not know about Matt Haggman, I don't know how you can't, but can you give us a short summary about your background, my friend?
You bet. Absolutely, Pete. First of all, thank you. It's so great to be back with you. Your studio, I loved your previous studio. That place, like you said, I mean, if the walls could talk, the history of that place, God only knows. But I love your new studio. Your digs are super cool. So believe it or not, Pete, this month, it will be 20 years. It is 20 years for me here in Miami. And so in December of 2001, I came to Miami, not knowing a soul, to work as a reporter, to break into journalism, and took a job at a small paper called the Daily Business Review, covering legal affairs, covering the courts. Did that for 2 years, then went over to the Miami Herald, where I worked for almost 8 years. So I was here for a journalist for 10 years, from 2001 to 2011, which in so many ways was like this graduate degree in Miami, right? I covered lawyers, I covered real estate developers, I covered local politicians, I worked as an investigative reporter. And so through that journey of following lawyers and developers and local politicians around, really got to see a really interesting side of Miami and fell in love with Miami. And it was in 2011, moved over to Knight Foundation, where that was me really sort of trying to double down on Miami. I had lots of friends at the Herald who were going up to other jobs in journalism, and New York and DC and LA. I have a friend who's still there today, Chicago, and I really wanted to be in Miami. Miami had become home for me. And so went to Knight Foundation and had this opportunity to think completely new about what to focus on. I remember very vividly Alberto Ibargüen, the CEO of Knight Foundation, saying, go talk to people for 4 months and tell me what we should do next in Miami. And came back, and so this was early 2012, came back and he said, okay, what's up? What should we focus on? And I said, I think we should launch an effort focused on building Miami's tech and startup community. And it was there, then launched a program and then built it around, the whole idea that as we're seeing new centers of innovation emerge, while of course the established players aren't going away, in my view, Silicon Valley, that's always going to be there, I think. But new centers will emerge in their own right, and the belief that Miami could be one of those places. So off we went, doing everything from bringing Endeavor to Miami, or seeding the launch and growth of Emerge Americas, or the Idea Center at Miami-Dade College, or 500 Startups, or Miami Angels, Black Tech Week, now the Center for Black Innovation, and on, Babson Women Innovating Now Lab, on and on we went, working to build an ecosystem so that, entrepreneurs and people across our community could build the ideas and solve the problems most important to them. And then, of course, Then, of course, I went on another adventure, had a little journey and the life of a candidate. And so went through that experience, which was really an extraordinary experience to see and engage with our community in a new and different way. And of course, what I'm referring to is when I ran for Congress, of course, a race that Donna Shalala jumped in, surprised us all. And she was the one, of course, who won and went off to Congress. And so now I'm at Beacon Council, which is the economic development organization for Greater Miami, for Miami-Dade County, with a very specific role, and that I was hired to reimagine, to rethink where we go next with one community, one goal. And that is, of course, Opportunity Miami, and what brings us today and brings us, together to talk about.
Now, we spoke before we went on air about One Community, One Go, and it was actually started originally, I think, in 1996, 97. Yeah. And the objective back then was to define the key industry sectors of Miami-Dade County and help to build those sectors by creating jobs and not just jobs, but high-paying jobs. Right. And it went on and did its thing, but it was resuscitated again in 2012 when Frank Nero was the president of the Beacon Council. And I remember sitting at that meeting and listening to what the quote unquote new objective was going to be. But when the folks that were part of setting all this up, they basically defined the same industry sectors that were defined some years before. So off it went running, and with a new objective, it was restarted still during the Great Recession, if I'm not mistaken, and with the objective, I think, of helping to create something like 75,000 new jobs, higher paying jobs, and we kept getting reports through the years how all of that was really growing and it was successful. But all of a sudden now we hear about something called Opportunity Miami. So I guess my question, and maybe a lot of the viewers and listeners, is what is the difference between OCOG, One Community, One Go, and Opportunity Miami?
So the mission of it remains the same and remains as important as ever. And that is to help shape our economic future by identifying those core things as a community that we must solve for, and then trying to be helpful in rallying the community and addressing those things. And as you pointed out, a long-sought goal here in Miami is to build a diversified economy with high wage jobs. And, we've made, incredible gains in doing that. I mean, I think in so many ways that we've sort of, Miami has gone from, through the years, a great place to visit to then a great place to visit and live. But I think we long talked about sort of brain drain and issues that if you really wanted to do stuff, ambitious professionally, you had to go someplace else. And I think we've really turned a corner now where it's a great place to visit, great place to live. And if you want to do really cool things in your professional life, Miami's a place where you can do it. So that mission remains the same. But in looking at One Community, One Goal, the feeling was we're at a moment in time, because as you rightly pointed out, the last iteration was in 2012. And furthermore, as you mentioned, the last iteration was really, we're still coming out of the Great Recession, still recovering from that. And here we're at a point in time where a real before and after moment. I mean, I think, the pandemic is one of those things where, none of us, the world we knew, the community that we live in, the people who we are not the same from before the pandemic in terms of after. So this is really one of those pivot points. And so the feeling was just that we're at a moment in time where a new name and a new brand could be really, really helpful. A new focus and what we're thinking about as we're thinking about the long-term future of Miami from an economic perspective, and a new way to go about our business. So the new name, Opportunity Miami, and the belief is that our biggest challenges present our greatest opportunities. Whether it's addressing sea level rise and climate change, whether it's enormous income inequality in our community, whether the fact that we're still in the early days of building that truly diversified high wage economy, that all of these challenges actually present outsized opportunities for our community. And that's where the name Opportunity Miami really comes from. In terms of what we're focusing on, we're really focusing on three things. And the belief is that if there are three things that if we do these well, the Miami that we find ourselves in 2030, the Miami we find ourselves in 2040, will be one in a really good place. Number one, entrepreneurship and innovation. That is that, the communities that are able to reinvent, that are more agile, where people are able to build the companies that they want to build, those are the communities that are going to win. I mean, McKinsey did a study forecasting that by the end of this decade, gosh, it was something like, 30%, almost 40% of job categories will shrink due to technology, but there'll be overall job growth. So it's through that big shakeup that is the communities that are the places that it's not static, but actually places where you can really grow and change. And you see new companies coming up all the time. Those are the places that are going to do well. And that's where we want Miami to be. Now, of course, we've all across our community spent a lot of time in this work. As I mentioned, we started the Knight program back in 2012, focused on entrepreneurship and innovation. Obviously, over the last year with COVID, the mayor's tweet, "How can I help?" All that's happened over the past year, we've taken a huge leap forward. But we're still, I think everyone would admit, in early innings of this effort. So we need to double, triple down our efforts there. Number two, talent and inclusion. That is that the places that provide ways in which people can build new skills quickly, affordably, in ways that align with their own lives, those are places that are going to win, right? And if we can really do it across the community, we have the opportunity to build a uniquely diverse, skilled workforce that can be differentiated globally. And then the third one is sustainability from a business perspective. And so here's how I'm coming at this one, is that as we think about the next 28 years, right? 2050 has been identified this time. We have to turn our economy to one that is net zero. That is, we're putting less CO2 in the air than we're taking out. On that journey, and we often talk about it as a threat. I mean, it is, but it presents this outsized opportunity. That is, on this journey over the next 3 decades, it will result in more new industries. It will result in more new companies. It will result in more new jobs. And the communities that really lean into this, those are the ones that are going to really benefit. Bill Gates in his book earlier this year wrote, the countries that build the carbon neutral companies of the future, these are the ones that are going to drive the global economy. Well, Miami can be one of these places that leans into this, solving our own problem, but a problem shared by the world, and something that can create jobs and drive our economy for a generation or more.
Matt, I think you would agree with this. Well, you've been here 20 years.
Yeah.
I've been here most of my life, but even into the time that you moved to Miami, the goal was always, one day we want to be just like New York. Everything that we did here, we looked at New York as the big brother, as the example, as what we all wanted Miami to be. But along the way, Miami created its own unique identity. And Miami today doesn't have to aspire to be anything else but what it is, and then grow it and enhance it with everything you just mentioned right now. I know for years, we've been driven by tourism and hospitality. Right? We've been driven by the real estate market. We've been, just the last maybe 10, 15 years, healthcare sector's really taken off, and international business. But I think now that one sector that is putting all this together, that is a common denominator in all of this, is technology. And you've been a pioneer in helping Miami, getting Miami on the map. We talk about Emerging Americas. Obviously, a little bit of a hiccup with COVID, but now coming back next year with another huge event. And you've got a major blockchain company that's sponsoring it. I mean, that tells you a lot about what's going on here. It's crazy here. So how can we take all of this and there are longer term goals, but what do you believe we need to do as we're going into a new year, 2022? Which is going to also be a very political year because of midterms. Okay.
In the fall.
So how can we make sure that this momentum that we have and this idea, especially now opportunity in Miami, doesn't get left on the side because of the political year we're getting into right now, so that we can stay front page and right on the radar screen?
So a couple thoughts. Number one, the whole idea with Opportunity Miami is creating something. This is the whole idea of one community, one goal, but continuing this is creating something that tries to move beyond election cycles and news cycles, right? That we have this organization that is within Beacon Council that is making the case every day, every week, every month, every year around where we need to go as a community from an economic perspective, creating high wage jobs, expanding opportunity across our community so people can pursue the lives, the jobs, build the companies, the ideas, the dreams that are most important to them. And so the whole idea of it is that whatever is happening in our political life, Opportunity in Miami is doing its work separate from that.
Yep.
And so that is the aim. And of course, believing strongly what you just said, is the whole idea around technology. There's of course the famous, now it's about 10 years ago, the famous op-ed that Mark Andreessen, the venture capitalist, wrote called, Why Software is Eating the World, and talking about how tech is becoming a part of our lives in every way, and companies you thought would be untouched by tech. Think back to taxi companies, right? You think, oh, we're good. Tech's not gonna, and of course, it completely upended taxi companies, right? Mm-hmm. And so and we know that trend is only going to continue. We're only going to now see it in other ways, whether it's blockchain being a part of our lives in lots of different ways, whether it's Web 3.0, whether it's I've talked about how climate and addressing climate being something that there's no company that won't be affected and impacted by it. But I would actually argue, rather than thinking about how you're impacted by it, about how the opportunity that it presents, right? How we're going to be building, and of course, let's not forget, right now, the fastest growing company in the world, arguably, is a climate tech company, mm-hmm. Tesla, mm-hmm. right? Electric cars, right? Mm-hmm. That is part of our net zero future, right? And we're thinking about all the different parts of our lives, from how we get around to how we build homes to where, in terms of how we cool our homes, to how we produce our food, all of those things, of course, where we get our power from, all of those things are part of that net zero future. So Opportunity in Miami is there to be making that case, no matter what's happening in our political life.
And now, I love the word opportunity, because we've been, last 2 years has been such a divisive environment.
Totally.
So much negativity, people pointing fingers at each other, and we've been so problem oriented. I think now with Opportunity Miami, I don't know if the name was, by design, because it goes beyond opportunities in business, but also opportunities in how we can really collaborate with each other and be more solutions oriented, solutions driven, so that a lot of these things that we're talking about that sound great, that they can actually happen, because at the end of the day, we have technology, but it is the people behind the technology that make that technology work. Matt, I got about a minute or so left here. Any parting words that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that Opportunity in Miami will only succeed by the engagement from you and all of our viewers. This is something we're building together. We're moving away. You asked about the difference from One Community, One Goal before. One Community, One Goal before, an amazing effort that included this over 450-page report that looked at what was called an economic roadmap for our future. We're turning that this time around with Opportunity Miami, and that is that the concern in today's world is that a static report within a year or two could be obsolete. So we're literally this time around going to be building it as we go, together with you and together with people across the community, and not only building it as we go, but learning and changing as we go. Because after all, in today's world, this is a world that requires compasses, not maps, right? And so, in Opportunity Miami, we really want to reflect that reality.
You want to keep Opportunity Miami a fresh opportunity.
You
want to avoid the dinosaur syndrome, because like you said, technology is changing on the snap of the finger. And so this movement, this initiative has to be nimble enough to be able to make those adjustments and never be called a has-been.
That's right. And our world is changing too fast. So would love for everyone to join us. You can find us at opportunity.miami. You can subscribe for our weekly newsletter. It will arrive in your inbox every Tuesday morning. Follow us on social channels at OpportunityMIA. And of course, and subscribe. We're going to be doing a podcast too, like we're trying to follow in your footsteps, Pete. And
I'll change roles with you. How about that?
I love it. Let's do it.
And I'll I'll get the living room look, and
Let's do it. It'll be so much fun.
My brother, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Happy holidays to you and your family. And 2022 is
here we go.
Right around the corner, man.
Here we go. And I really think you're asking about 2022. I think the best is yet to come in terms of people coming here, in terms of people thinking of Miami in new ways and making their own imprint on the place, which we've seen over and over again, which is, that is one of Miami's great superpowers. I think we're in for so much more.
Let me give you a sign that tells you everything, buddy.
Yes, sir. Pete,
take care, man.
Take care.
I appreciate it. All righty. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, everybody, as you saw in that conversation with Matt, exciting times are upon us, and especially after we get into the new year. A lot of really cool things happening in Miami. So much is going on and driven in a large part by a new technology movement here. I want to thank you for being with us. This weekly video podcast, again, is really something that will help you understand better what's going on in South Florida and the city of Doral as it relates to business development and economic growth. I ask you to follow us on all social media platforms and to be a part of what we're doing at Camacol Doral. Thank you so much for being with us. You have yourself a great week. Take care and God bless.